it is good to be me. Oh, hey, Maxwell.
Yo.
How you doing?
Oh, could be better. But hey, congratulations on that championship. Hopefully one of these days I'll experience something like that.
Appreciate it. I mean, we don't really get these opportunities to ever feel any kind of happiness, so it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Listen, I know you're having a great time right now, and I don't want to rain on your parade or anything, but...
No, it's fine. Nothing could affect me right now. I mean, I'm on cloud 9, baby.
Yeah. So Gregg's back.
Come on, you can come up with a better joke than that.
No, I'm being 100% serious here. They rehired Gregg Berhalter.
What?! I can't be happy for more than a week, can I? Okay, so let's just go down memory lane, shall we? We love memory lane. So back in December of last year, the World Cup happened. I don't know if you remember that. I mean, I do. Great memory I have. Anyways, though, the U.S. had just gotten knocked out by the Dutch in the World Cup round of 16. Amazing tactical performance from Gregg Berhalter, our head coach. Got to see our players cross the ball into the box. No one was ever in the box, and that was it. That was it for a whole 90 minutes. So after the World Cup, there were discussions about Gregg Berhalter's future since his contract was expiring. Most people, obviously, like myself, were saying, please God, don't do this to us. Not another 4 years. Please God. It was just like the elections of 2020. But then a bunch of controversy happens. This controversy was real fun, really made me proud to be a US fan, let me tell you. Basically, Gregg Berhalter told Gio Reyna that he'd have a limited role. Gio Reyna, by the way, if you didn't know, is one of our most talented players. As a result, though, of Berhalter telling Gio Reyna that, Gio Reyna had a bit of a bitch fit where he didn't really put all his effort into training and practice and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of affected the team, and everything was just a mess.
Forgot to mention this part in the video, but things actually did get resolved between Reyna and Berhalter. Reyna actually apologized to the players, to the staff. Another thing to mention also, Berhalter pretty much lied about Gio Reyna having an injury. He was completely fine. But yeah, everything was resolved, and then Gregg Berhalter just decided to talk about the Gio Reyna incident at a conference.
Then things got worse, because this is the United States of America, and nothing screams United States of America more than soccer moms. And this was like the final boss of soccer moms. Gio Reyna's parents, though, they were very angry specimens, and they decided they wanted to rant to some friends. And those friends so happened to be members of the Federation. Specifically, Brian McBride, a general manager, and Ernie Stewart, our sporting director. I mean, that's always a great sign. But the Reynas, were piling on all this stuff about how the Berhalters had betrayed them. They'd known the Berhalters for so long. Oh, how could they do this to our son? The travesties. And then, in the middle of that, all of a sudden, they decided to go a step even farther down that I don't even think soccer moms would even approve of. And that was Gio Reyna's mother throwing out a 30-year-old domestic violence case just for leverage. I mean, how fucking scummy can you possibly be? These two figures right here, I wish them literally nothing good. I fucking hate every single one of them. But after that whole thing was just thrown out, because they were talking to a sporting director at the time, they then took that to the Federation, and then it just turned into a complete mess from there. We had a whole investigation and everything. It's kind of funny because Gregg Berhalter and his wife Rosalind gave pretty clear answers throughout the investigation. Their family did the same thing. Coaches, kind of. But then when it came to the people who threw that claim out there, if it wasn't any more proof that this was literally just used as leverage, they didn't say a fucking word in the investigation. They were just like, oh, it happened. I know it happened. Okay, thank you for that f***ing information. I think one other thing to mention, by the way, is the fact that none of the Reynas were actually there when it happened, in person, when it happened live. Gio's mother was going to the same college, she just wasn't there that night. And then Gio's dad, Claudio, was not even f***ing at that college. He went to Virginia. But yeah, because of all this embarrassing drama, it actually complicated things when it came to the US picking a coach for the next cycle. As you can tell, not really the biggest fan of this entire scandal. Like, I'd rather just be watching the game and not having to worry about what's happening behind the scenes in the Federation, but can't really do that when the Federation is just plagued with cronyism and nepotism, so that's always a fun bit. But I did make a video about this that is far less half-assed and a ton more details in it, so if you do want to watch that, here's the video about that scandal up here. Back on track though, into late January, the two figures that we talked about, the sporting director and the general manager, both left. Brian McBride just kind of f***ed off, but then Ernie Stewart actually left and joined PSV. Praying for you guys, by the way. But now with the chance to get a new sporting director opened up an opportunity for us to finally go in the right direction. We could finally erase the non-existent legacy of Ernie Stewart's and finally get someone who knows how to actually run a program. And the man to do that, according to the USSF, was Matt Crocker. Now, as opposed to previous hires, Crocker was an outsider. He wasn't a player for the US and didn't really have any close relations with anyone in the Federation, so no worries about cronyism there at least. Secondly, his CV is actually impressive. He began his career in 1999 as an academy manager for Cardiff City. Then he became an EFL youth development monitor in 2005. After a year, he then joined Southampton to be their academy manager, where he oversaw the nurturing of future stars like Gareth Bale and James Ward-Prowse. He did that until 2013 when he oversaw the pathway of all of England's youth teams. During his time, England won the U17 World Cup, U20 World Cup, and the U19 Euros. Then most recently, he was a director of football operations at Southampton. Overall, Matt Crocker as the new US sporting director seemed pretty promising. He had shown a lot of experience in building up sporting infrastructure through culture and strategy. Crocker's first job, of course, would be to help find the right head coach for the next cycle, someone who could transcend this already young and promising squad. He started his process by using different metrics to find head coaches. He used data sets and skills to see what style each coach identified as. For example, whether that be an aggressive manager or a more so laid-back one, to which then he'd contact players and ask them what they wanted in a coach. After that, he'd look into overall achievements and performance, ELO ratings, winning records, and coaches specifically with a reputation of developing young players. While that hiring process would occur, the US needed to figure out a quick short-term answer while the search for a coach began. So the Federation hired assistant coach Anthony Hudson, a coach who before the US had the worst statistical record of any manager for the Colorado Rapids. Not to mention, he was asked during his managerial tenures with New Zealand and Bahrain. In all fairness though, he did fine for our national team. 2 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. However, he then departed after receiving an offer from a Qatari club. By this point, it was the end of May, nearly 6 months, and we still had no permanent head coach with both the Gold Cup and Nations League coming up. But because interviews were still ongoing, the Federation decided to put its trust in a new interim, BJ Callahan. This man didn't even have a Wikipedia page. I had to look at his LinkedIn to find out who the this guy was. And now he was going to be leading us through both the Nations League and the Gold Cup. We're already short on time as is. The World Cup is in 3 years, and now we have to wait till 2024 to have a permanent head coach lead a team through a significant tournament. And that's gonna be 2 years until the World... come on, man! Meanwhile, though, back at the Federation HQ, Crocker has interviewed more than 10 different candidates for the job. Those considered as candidates include former Leeds manager Jesse Marsh, former Palace manager Patrick Vieira, and Gregg Berhalter. Now, eventually, this list was cut down to just a few. And from there, the remaining candidates would go through a rigorous and intense interview process that would last a whole day. This interview had everything, by the way. Psychometric tests, which is the science of measuring mental capacities, whatever the hell that means, abstract reasoning tests, logical thinking tests. I mean, they probably had every coach play 1 round of the impossible quiz. However, after all those interviews, a voting process from the board, the Federation hired Gregg Berhalter. We waited half a year! Why are you talking about how we've wasted time? I mean, this was a waste of time. Why do the interview process in the first place? Like, this Federation interviewed the likes of Patrick Vieira, Jesse Marsh, and we picked Gregg Berhalter! We got an outside man. We literally got an outside man. He brought in all these, like, fucking psychometrics and shit like that. Quantum physics, whatnot. And in the end, somehow it lands on Gregg Berhalter. No, I'm not gonna believe that. I'm not gonna believe that this was legit whatsoever. I'm just tired. I'm just tired. I don't even really know what to say anymore because I've already said everything. Like, I don't want to preach the same bullshit with, like, every other YouTuber does, where it's like, oh, this is nepotism. No fucking shit, it's nepotism. I've said that the last 4 videos. I don't want to say that again. I don't get it. It's like the US finds some way to ruin my day every other day. It's like they just knock on the door one day, and it's just like, oh, hey, Maxwell, I just spent all of your money, so now you're broke. Oh, that's wonderful, US Federation, great. Oh, and by the way, I broke my arm, had to go to the hospital, now you owe $10,000, because US healthcare is amazing like that. Oh, thank you so much, US Federation. Oh, and by the way, I killed your entire family. Okay, obviously, I'm just exaggerating. You guys know me, I just go insane every single time I start talking about the US Federation. Couldn't we have just looked at his last 4 years as head coach of the team? I feel like 4 years is definitely a pretty good sample size of telling whether or not a coach is actually competent at his job or not. Actually, no, they probably did. But really, they only looked at the winning percentage on Wikipedia, and that was it. And this is a winning percentage where 1/3 of his wins come against island teams with barely any footballing infrastructure. Another third is against nations that are declining, which so happens to be quite literally every CONCACAF team except for Canada. Oh, and by the way, we've lost to Canada multiple times under Berhalter. I get it, you can't really control what confederation you're in, so you just have to play what's there. But Gregg has been outplayed by these smaller nations, these declining nations, numerous times. And anytime there's even a slight bit of competence and tactical ability, Canada, for example, or even Japan before the World Cup, we just flounder. I know some people are gonna throw out the stupid argument. It's always expected to be thrown into the f***ing conversation anytime we talk about Berhalter, where it's like, oh, but he won the Nations League. He won the Gold Cup. Okay, that's great. Who was it against? Oh yeah, a declining Mexican side twice. That was their best opponent. Both tournaments, that was their best opponent. I mean, even before then, we struggled against, was it Honduras in the Nations League? Like, come on. Come on! That's that mediocre mentality that continues to plague this entire landscape. We can do better. Look at the squad we have. We're capable of so much more. And it feels like this video's been going on for an hour, because I hate talking about this. Okay? I know people get this impression, it's like, oh, Max will get to talk about something negative, so he gets views and bangs. Yeah, that's great and all. But, like, I don't like being miserable. But, of course, we can't forget about those lineup selections and those substitutions from Berhalter, because they are just, it's a whole bag of surprises, and not the good kind. When we needed a goal in the World Cup, who did Berhalter put in? Jordan Morris. Shaq Moore. I just find it so ironic that with this interview, there was all these, like, complicated-ass tests. But when it came to, like, concrete evidence of Berhalter's managerial tenure, his past performances, it was just like, oh, yeah, no, we'll just gloss over this. There's nothing wrong with this. Nah, it's fine. It's fine. You're really telling me that after all these tests, out of Berhalter, Patrick Vieira, Jesse Marsh, we're picking Gregg Berhalter? Berhalter was the best performer? Are you serious? Would you shut the fuck up? Again, we just wasted half a year just to hire Gregg Berhalter again. I don't necessarily think Jesse Marsh and Patrick Vieira are like the best ever candidates on the face of the planet. Absolutely not. But they're definitely an improvement from Gregg Berhalter. I can 100% say that. I'm assuming one of the main reasons why Berhalter was rehired by the Federation was because of his so-called great culture that he's built within the national team. But have you ever kind of just found it funny, a little ironic, how the media always talks about Berhalter and his culture, but I have never seen any kind of attention put upon his tactics. None. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. There's the whole Gio Reyna ordeal now that we have to deal with, now that Berhalter's back in charge. I'm sure he's going to play, but you never know. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just on the brink of it, right? I have never been less enthusiastic about the national team, and I'm literally watching this team play Trinidad on Sunday. It's just sad. This whole program is just happy being mediocrity incarnate, when there's so much potential with this team, so many different advantages that we have. There are national teams out there way less fortunate that would die for the infrastructure and money that we have. And they would also die for a golden generation like this. There are so many players that will be reaching their peaks in 2026, and who will be leading them? Midman himself, Gregg Berhalter. Like, it's just I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. I really don't. It's just hopeless. It's all just hopeless. It's all just fucking hopeless. Anyways, though, I don't have anything else to say. I know this video's kind of late. It was mainly just because of the Nuggets video in the previous week, so sorry about that. Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this entire video. I straight up had a script, and then I just started going on like 400 different ramblings, so this video is going to be real fun to edit. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, including Stin, Janos Balash, Chris Damasceno, Miliway009, Aldipu, Alex Rod, Alta, Amin Suamez, Ade-san, Carlos Anaya, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Guy, Joao Carvalho, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rivera Drawn, Rory Burns, Saw, Slider Kit, Sniffers, Takuoka Fan, The Motor Drive, Tomicus, Vanilla Mexican 17, Victor, Bubble, Chris Visconsi, Q90 Champs 2022, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Joe Paricio, Lucian Von Croix, Michael Nista, MX Weeb, Niche, Patrick Barley, Phil Bacchus, Sylvia Citrus, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my TikTok, trying to get to 20,000 there, and of course you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.